Hi everyone, Cleanthony Breaktano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a classic review of this Earth album, Earth 2. Yep, classic review of the debut 1993 full-length album of Earth, an experimental and drone metal project that hails all the way from Washington, an album whose concept and context is most likely going to drive more conversation in this review than the music itself, because when it comes to the 15 to 30 minute songs on this album, frankly, there's not a whole lot to explain. But no matter what shape Earth has taken over the years, it has always been masterminded by guitarist, composer, and avant-gardist Dylan Carlson, who you may or may not have heard of. Earth is certainly still active to this day. I have reviewed a lot of the band's more contemporary records, but still, even those albums, as good as some of them are, don't exactly lend themselves to viral popularity. Neither does Earth 2 over here. Plus, on top of it, Dylan Carlson has long been a figure who doesn't exactly jump into the limelight. He is a slightly elusive guy, but despite his and Earth's relative obscurity, they're actually connected to so much key rock history in the US. This album, again, was released back in the 90s on the legendary Sub Pop Records label, and Earth's previous EP they dropped just before this in 1991 actually features Kurt Cobain on vocals at one point. Also, Joe Preston of Melvins fame, who is actually a pretty key figure when it comes to the development of this whole drone metal thing too. Not just because of Preston's time in Earth, but also due to the heavy, expansive, repetitive metal motifs that he and Melvins have explored over the course of their career, especially on Joe's own solo 1992 EP, solo-ish. I mean, back in the day, Melvins came out with this EP series. Each record was attributed to a single member, which obviously was kind of a cheeky mockery of the time Kiss came out, that album series way back when, where, each record was, featuring a certain member of the band. But anyway, on Joe Preston's record over here, there is a 22-minute drone metal track that seemingly employs a lot of the same techniques that Earth and he used on that 1991 EP, so that linkage is obviously there. If I wanted to talk more about Earth's more widespread influence, I could go on about how the heavy and more psychedelic qualities of their music went on to influence many an artist in the stoner, drone, and doom metal fields, Sun, as well as many artists from their Southern Lord record label, which Earth has released music on, of course, over the years. There's also countless artists and music scenes and albums that branch off of that tree, which you could do multiple books or videos on if you wanted to document all of those details. That's just how deep and far the ripples of Earth 2's influence go. So the impact this record had, pretty massive, even if it was a bit of a delayed domino effect, considering, again, this album dropped all the way back in 1993. Really the definition of being ahead of its time, and out of place in a lot of aspects too, as Earth seemed so far outside of even what was going on in the more dark and experimental realms of the grunge world, never mind metal's most prevailing trends at the time, which, what are we talking about? Alt metal, groove metal, thrash, some heavy metal residuals. The American death metal scene was also kind of gaining momentum around this time too, pretty much none of which snapped cleanly to the sorts of ideas that Earth was embracing at the time, which at the time were such a shot in the dark that the album itself seems to have trouble seeing faith in its artistic mission. What do I mean by that? Just look at the cover art and the liner notes of this record, for example. I mean, it doesn't exactly scream metal or loud, or 73 minutes of skull-squeezing distortion, bass, and feedback. The cover actually looks like that of a super sweet, peaceful, relaxing new age CD. And also special low frequency version. Has there ever been another version? I mean, even the title Earth 2 makes it seem like we're about to embark on this record of nature sounds that are like super relaxing, and it's a part of this like, you know, overall compilation series or something. And the back cover doesn't really leave a whole lot of hints either, outside of Dylan Carlson and Dave Harwell looking a little scuzzy, like a little metal over here, but still, what actually takes up more space on the back of this CD are all of these fake recommendation quotes that say things like, my tension headaches have disappeared. After I auditioned this CD, I had a very, very deep, relaxing sleep. Obviously, to a great extent here, Sub Pop and Dylan are kind of taking the piss and joking around a little bit, making fun of the new age music market broadly. But simultaneously, I feel like this cover and its back side design are kind of a sad admission that this very crowd of people may also be this CD's only hope of being purchased and getting out there. Because who outside of some of the biggest weirdos on the planet and some yuppies looking to relax would give this CD a try knowing what is happening on it? Which I know comes across as dismissive, but at the same time, this is legitimately a type of relaxation music. I mean, in this review so far, I have talked about drone metal's origins, but what exactly is it? Especially since this album over here pretty much exemplifies it perfectly. Well, the idea is so simple it kind of explains itself. It's a drone, a note or a sound or a harmony that is sustained for a very long period of time, unbroken and repeating, and musically, this sort of thing can have sometimes very relaxing and mind-altering effects. A concept that has been pretty widely explored in music for thousands of years at this point, especially in music that has very deep-rooted cultural, spiritual, or religious practices attached to it. And I see a lot of more modern, more secular drone music as a means of sort of reconnecting with that, which is also the case for Earth 2 over here. But this is not just a drone album, this is a drone metal album, meaning these repetitive, sustained, minimalist concepts are being explored with heavy, distorted guitars, with huge amplifiers, with a lot of low end. Imagine if you could take these big, fat hard rock riffs, or like a Slayer riff, and apply it to a minimalist composition piece, especially a very slow, sludgy, heavy one. And that is what you get in a nutshell on Earth 2, which again just lasts 3 tracks that all kind of segue into each other, making for a pretty uniform listen. And all these pieces just kind of feel like slight and increasingly intense variations on the same form, which again is why I say the context and concept of this album is a little bit more interesting to discuss than the music itself, because there's not a lot of detail to go over with these pieces, and that's kind of the point. They're supposed to be so heavy and enveloping and repetitive and mind-numbing that you don't really think about them, rather drifting off while they're on into some kind of deep subconscious or a state of mental clarity, which is true of a lot of drone and meditative music. And again, also true of Earth 2, but these metal guitars put things in kind of a weird vibe, because while it is relaxing, it is also kind of hellish. We are talking about distorted metal guitars here being the primary driver of this album's sound. And yeah, it's pretty foreboding, but also very bassy, and it's so thick it feels like a physical presence in the room while I'm listening to it on some, you know, big hi-fi speakers. There's a guttural growl to the drones on this record that are just so thick you could sink into them like a body pillow. That, in essence, is the effect of the 15-minute opener. On the second track of the record, Teeth of Lions Rule the Divine, there are more tinny layers of feedback hanging in the upper frequencies of the piece, some fatter sub-bass swells as well. It's legitimately relaxing. It kind of sounds like I'm listening to a dozen sound bowls ringing out all at once against all of these, like, you know, earthquake-sized vibrations. And the simple makeup of the track is you kind of have the drone going off in the background, the metal guitar riffs and variations kind of going on top over that, and then like some eerie sounds fading in and out of the mix here and there. It's actually more engaging and detailed than you would presume it to be, or maybe it even needs to be, as after a while when I'm sinking into this thing, like, there are kind of a lot lot of finer nuances that I like listening to specifically and eating up. But also even the way the drone moves itself across these tracks, the way that the sound vibrates and is kind of like going into this feedback from the guitar pickups, and the way the distortion and the bass kind of moves. It feels alive in a way, like some kind of sonic beast being awoken. Of course, the closing track, just like the previous two, is another drone, but this one gets especially deep, bassy, gurgly, and intense, really reaching a place of transcendence. As weird as the record is, I feel like it starts in a place that is knowable. It sounds like I'm just listening to a bunch of kind of heavy guitars chugging along at a very slow pace. But then when we reach the final moments of the record, it feels more like I'm listening to 1,000 guitar strings just ringing out into infinity forever as I'm floating through this endless corridor of vibration, which is a powerful image to say the least. I should also say, if you're just listening to this record on laptop speakers or headphones, it's just not gonna do it justice. I feel like a key part of enjoying this album and, you know, having its full effect wash over you is feeling the sound that it's generating. I'm not saying you need to play it so loud that you're going deaf or that it's hurting your ears. That's actually kind of the beauty of this album, and it's very great engineering at the time that it was made. You could play it pretty loud to the point where it is like really kind of shaking whatever room you're listening to it in, without the high end becoming so harsh and so abrasive and so overpowering that it's ear-piercing to listen to. Dylan and company really knew what they were doing when they were trying to capture the sound of this record and just like kind of make it exist on this CD in the way that they did, which is why it's such a cutting edge album, which is why it's so ahead of its time, which is why when it comes to all of these like super heavy stoner doom metal trends that were coming out of the 2000s, like Earth was just like there beforehand, laying all the groundwork for all of that, along with Melvins and Godflesh and a few other acts too that you could certainly tribute. But when it comes to that heavy otherworldly sound that, you know, only a handful of artists since Earth, I think, have successfully captured, Earth and Earth 2 are really kind of like where a lot of that is starting. And those are going to be my thoughts and my classic review of this LP. Thank you for watching. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up with a link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Earth 2, forever.